Hi, my name is Gary HAWLEY. I'm a woodworker and a metalsmith. I'm currently doing most of my work on the wood lathe, and the way I've been doing this is to turn the round shape as usual and then cut it into pieces. In this case, 2 pieces, sometimes several pieces. So what I did was to turn this rock maple bowl, and then I cut it, as you can see, on the bandsaw, and then I reassembled it using a very thin piece of very nicely figured maple. I screwed the heavy piece into the maple and then glued the lighter piece so that it covered up the screws. So the question for me as I was doing this is, now that you know how I assembled this, is the piece of maple, does it divide the bowl, or has it united the 2 divisions of the bowl? So for me, this is now still one bowl brought together by a piece of maple, and I don't think of it anymore as a division between the 2. I think of it as a connection between the 2. And I think that's generally how I think about life in general. As Einstein said, one of our great delusions is that we're separated from the universe. The universe doesn't separate us, it connects us. This connects the bowl, the universe connects us. And that's how I like to think of my work, as connecting things rather than taking them apart.
This past year, I've spent time, perhaps like many of you, walking neighborhood streets close to home, looking for curiosities. The photograph I've contributed to this art show is one such curiosity. I had totally stopped looking at telephone poles and wires. I mean, once hailed as this amazing advance in communication, now we're either overlooked, ignored, or maligned as a visual blight to landscapes. I thought they conveyed the evolution of connectivity and communication, from simple wooden poles with miles and miles of linear wire to something far more convoluted and confusing. It struck me as being a metaphor for our difficult conversations. To me, it's a little reminiscent of the Olympic symbol, integrating, interlocking rings, as if suggesting that it's these very difficult conversations that have the capacity to bring us together.
Welcome to my studio. I'm here tonight to tell you a little bit about what the story is of my tree reflection paintings that are here in the exhibit tonight. One of the things that I know that motivates me is being in nature, and of course being at home in this year enabled me to spend a lot of time alone in nature and with my husband. One of the things that stimulated the tree paintings was a book that I had read called The Life of Trees. And it talked about how trees communicate with each other through their root system and through the chemicals that their leaves give off. An article on Japanese forest bathing, something that Japanese do regularly, which is walking through the forest, being in nature, receiving the chemicals that the trees exude, has both physical and mental health benefits. I live on a lake in Arlington. And one day last fall, it was a very windy day, I went down there. The colors were pretty much in full bloom, and I went down, was sitting in a chair down there, and the trees, branches, and the leaves were just dancing in the water. It seemed as if they were alive. They were communicating to me, and I wanted to communicate that through these paintings.
My most recent work grew out of a concern for the accessibility of fresh water across the globe, and that started to evolve during the 3 years that I lived in Cairo, Egypt, actually in New Cairo, which is desert basically and quite a ways from the Nile. My medium of choice is also water-oriented. I start with a cyanotype printmaking technique, laying down some chemical onto paper, painting it on, and exposing that paper to the sun. So you place a plant or a negative on top of the pre-treated paper, expose it to the sun, and then develop it in a bath of fresh water. Once I've done the cyanotype printmaking, I often embellish the prints with metallic watercolor or sumi ink. I often start by laying down a brush dipped in water. I'll paint the paper, paint a form or shape, and then drip the ink onto the water. And it's a real meditative experience to just sit and watch the ink travel across the water. The way it forms patterns are not unlike if you're up in an airplane looking down on a river and stream, and you see the way the water has just naturally formed grooves in the land. And you'll see similar patterns in the sumi ink, such as here you've got, I drew a straight line with the ink, and then it immediately kind of crystallized. That my work is definitely about interconnectivity between plants, the natural world, and humanity. And so I've started to look at the human body and how there are elements in the human body that are similar to or interconnected to elements in nature, in particular in plant life. Looking at roots and how they're similar to veins and arteries in the human body. Looking at ferns and also seeing similar patterns in the human lung. And so that's where I'm headed at this point, and I really feel strongly that human beings, our lives are completely interwoven with life on this planet and with each other.
My name is Catherine O, and I sign with the artist's name XOKO. I'm always looking for connections, a story to tell with everything that I do. The story inevitably is about me. I am an Asian American. I was born in South Korea and immigrated to the United States at the age of 7. That I grew up feeling alienated and disconnected with my environment. And for a long time, I was entrapped by that story without even realizing that I am the author of that story. Because my story about feeling alienated and disconnected from people, whoever came into my life, I would inevitably cause to alienate or disconnect with me if they did not corroborate with my story. I realized the power that I had as the author of my own story, and that truly transformed everything that I knew to be real. I realized that the concept of me is a myth. There is no me without you, and there is no you without me. My art is, in a small way, me extending out my hands to you. Thank you.
Jennifer here. I'm in my studio in my home in fabulous East Arlington. And my main interest in art making and making things is really process, and any drawing, print, painting is really a byproduct. Still life painting, a genre, people write mystery novels and there's a plot and who did it and who didn't do it, but often they also bring in other concerns, a culture, a time period, you name it. And still life painting can work that way too. A narrative, the symbolism of everyday objects, and I'm very happy to be part of this show. Thank you.
This is my painting, Planet in Perspective. I'm really excited that this is here in the show. I really like this painting because of the blue colors representing the water. It really feels like it's the planet seen from above, perhaps of the Mediterranean Sea. And you can see here like deltas running down into the water and the different swirls of the water, because the water is never just a uniform color. You can almost imagine that these little specks are like little boats out at sea fishing. I like the theme of water. I use it as a motif in a lot of my art. I feel like water, it's the source of life. It unites us all in our humanity and with all living things on the earth. It's something that joins us and nourishes us and needs to be protected. And so part of when I'm looking at the water, that's part of what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking about every droplet of water, how every molecule of water has passed through each living thing that's come before me. And I'm just like a temporary receptacle of the water, and then it's going to move on, and I'm just part of that continuum. And that's kind of, I think, why I end up turning to water a lot as a theme. You see water images explicitly shown in a lot of my art, as well as there's an implicit view of water in the way that the paint flows across the canvas. I'm working primarily in watercolors and acrylics at the moment. This just really speaks to me. This is one of my favorite paintings. I'm really excited about being in this exhibition at the Arlington Center for the Arts, and I'm excited to see what the other artists have contributed, and enjoy being part of the community in this way.
I'm very happy to be part of this show. Thank you.
I hope you're enjoying the show.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and be well.